The aquapark was loud in the way only summer places can be. Music echoing off concrete, water crashing, people laughing without worrying who heard them. She came with friends, already half wet, hair tied up, sunscreen uneven on her shoulders. It was supposed to be a break from routine, from thinking too much, from spending days scrolling instead of living. She wasn't looking for anything or anyone. She just wanted movement, noise, and the feeling of being young without explanation. Somewhere between the lockers and the first slide, she noticed her, standing barefoot near the pool, adjusting her wristband, clearly unsure where to go next. At first, it was nothing special. Just a glance held a second longer than usual. Then another. They ended up in the same line for a slide that looked more dramatic than it really was. Water dripped from the ceiling, people joked nervously, and the wait stretched longer than expected. Someone ahead complained loudly, and without thinking, one of them laughed and made a comment about how impatience was the real extreme sport. The other laughed back, instantly, easily. That laugh changed the atmosphere. They started talking, where they were from, how often they came here, which slides were overrated. Nothing deep. Nothing planned. Just conversation that flowed like it didn't need permission. They went down the slide one after the other, screaming, crashing into the pool, resurfacing breathless and laughing. When they met at the edge, hair wet, eyes bright, it felt natural to stay together. One ride turned into another. They challenged each other, teased each other, shared fries that tasted better because they were eaten dripping wet, sitting on hot concrete. At some point, the friends faded into the background, not intentionally, just naturally. The aquapark felt smaller now, more focused, like the noise existed only to give them cover. They talked while floating on their backs in the lazy river, staring at the sky through drifting clouds. Conversation softened there. She admitted she usually avoided places like this because she hated being seen, being watched. The other said she came here because water made her feel brave, like it washed expectations off her skin. There was a pause after that, not awkward, just honest. No labels were mentioned. No assumptions made. But something clear existed between them, unspoken and real. As the sun began to lower and the crowd thinned, they sat at the edge of the pool, legs in the water, shoulders touching. The day had stripped away hesitation in a way either expected. Before leaving, one of them asked, quietly but directly, if this could continue somewhere less loud, less wet, but just as real. The answer came without delay. Numbers were exchanged. Smiles lingered. No dramatic goodbye, no promises spoken too soon. Later, each of them would think back to that day and realize the same thing. They hadn't met because they were searching. They met because they were present. In a place built for chaos and noise, they found clarity. The aquapark didn't change their lives overnight, but it did something important. It reminded them that connection doesn't always arrive in quiet cafes or carefully planned moments. Sometimes it crashes in like water, unexpected, refreshing, and brave enough to make you stay instead of run. They met again a few days later, this time in a place that felt almost too quiet after the aquapark. A small cafe, late afternoon, sunlight cutting across the tables. Seeing each other dry-dressed, without the blur of water and noise, felt like a second introduction. For a moment, both wondered if the connection would shrink outside that loud, careless space. It didn't. It deepened. Conversation moved more slowly now, but with intention. They talked about music they played on repeat, about how social media made everything feel louder than it needed to be, about the strange pressure to define yourself before you're ready. There was relief in being understood without having to explain too much. As weeks passed, they built something that didn't need a label right away. Walks that turned into long talks. Nights where phones stayed face down. Shared playlists. Inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. They learned how each other handled closeness, one needing reassurance through words, the other through presence. When insecurity appeared, it wasn't hidden. It was named, discussed, softened. That honesty became the quiet center of what they were building. Not perfect, not dramatic, but real enough to trust. Eventually, they returned to the aquapark together, not to recreate the moment, but to see what it felt like now. The place was just as loud, just as chaotic, but something had changed. Floating side by side in the lazy river, fingers brushing occasionally, they laughed at how brave they had felt that first day without knowing why. The water still washed everything else away, but now it carried memory too. They realized that what had started there wasn't about adrenaline or escape. It was about permission to be seen, to be curious, to choose connection even when it felt easier not to. Standing at the exit as the sun dipped low, they understood something simple and steady. Love doesn't always arrive softly. Sometimes it splashes into your life, knocks the air out of your lungs, and dares you to stay present. And if you don't look away, it can turn a random summer day into the beginning of something that feels honest, modern, and entirely your own.